Long ago, in the faraway plain of ancient Theros, there was a time of powerful gods and extraordinary heroes. But what's the measure of a true hero? That is what our story is.
Hold up. We could do a lore vid a little better than that. Hey everybody, I'm Dish. Welcome to the Knowledge Pool, a think tank for games and magic. Theros is one of my favorite planes.
Deeply influenced by Greek theology.
Ripped off. Sorry.
Theros is the bastion of monocolored fun and the main setting for the story of the planeswalker Elspeth Tirel.
Theros Beyond Death came out with a story summary, and I'm going to go over the story of Theros so far and some of the implications of it. Now, I'm not a Vorthos or a lore mage, but I did read a lot about this topic. But I might get things wrong, and if I do, I am truly sorry. So to do this right, we have to start on a flashback.
Centuries ago, Theros was having some bad luck. Huge, primal creatures based on urges called Titans were trashing the whole plane, destroying and eating everything in sight.
It was a nasty place. There was a mess wherever you stepped, where chaos reigned and the earthquakes and volcanoes never slept. Woo! Sing it, girlfriend.
And then along came
Heliod. Well, kind of.
So the people of Theros started praying for something, anything to help save them from the Titans. And this strong devotion to a divine intervention, along with the properties of Theros and Nyx, caused the gods to just spring into being. The pantheon became real, and immediately went to work on sealing the Titans in the underworld.
Enter Clothis, god of destiny.
Clothis wants fate to stay on course, and volunteered to watch the seal for all eternity, just to make sure the Titans stayed buried in the underworld. Nice of her, considering the other gods aren't nearly as trusting or responsible in their jobs.
More on that later. Flash forward.
Heliod and Perforos got beef and decided to hash it out god style in a big old god fight. Perforos made a sword that could kill divinity, and they fought so hard they woke up Pelucranos, the coolest looking Hydra on Theros, who started to wreck the plane. Also in the process, Perforos dropped his sword in the mortal realm. A newly sparked Elspeth watched this fight on her first trip to Theros, and ended up taking the awesome sword. The gods didn't like that, and Elspeth planeswalked away with the sword before she got some of that divine intervention I was mentioning before. 15 years pass, and Elspeth comes back to Theros, having faced some harrowing defeats on Bant and Alara and New Phyrexia, formerly Mirrodin. She wanted to learn the ways of Heliod, get some peace, hang out with her meet-cute Daxos, normal life. But the gods and a tricky satyr named Xenagos had other plans. Heliod went to confront Elspeth about the whole divine sword thing, but decided with Pelucranos newly unsealed and running amok, he'd just make her his champion and upgrade that sweet sword into a sweet spear called Godsend. Xenagos used the spear's existence to manipulate the other gods to turn their eye on Elspeth. Meanwhile, he tricked Elspeth into killing her boyfriend in a PTSD episode.
No joke, y'all.
And obtained the devotion and faith of his followers to ascend to godhood. This, of course, pissed the other gods off, as well as Elspeth, who vowed revenge. Some stuff happened with a ship, the Leonin, Johnny was there, blah blah blah. She ends up fighting and beating Xenagos. She offers her life to Erebos in exchange for Daxos, which Erebos accepts. But Ajani's all like, oh, we can peace out. They try, they get to Nyx, and Heliod catches them and kills Elspeth with her own spear. Elspeth's dead, Daxos is dead, and things are back to normal.
Or are they?
So in between Elspeth's death and now in the story, Heliod starts obsessing on the fact that gods can just be made, and that faith could sway and he could be replaced. Daxos, in the meantime, has become a returned, which is like a Theros zombie with no memory of their past life. Heliod finds him, brings him back to real life, and gives Daxos the powers of a demigod, commanding him to go to Miletus, it's like Athens, okay, and wipe out every trace of the other gods there. Daxos remembers all the things with Elspeth. The demigods don't get to choose their orders and goes to do what he's told. The other gods get super pissed about this, in particular Erebos, and each god champions a demigod to fight in this war. The underworld kinda gets neglected. Rifts start forming between the mortal world and the underworld. Elspeth, meanwhile, was chilling up in Elysia, the cool underworld for heroes, but things start going wrong. Ashiok came back to Theros, lured by the nightmares of devout citizens, and decided to snack on Elspeth since she's seen some stuff. During these nightmares, Ashiok learns of the Phyrexians and goes all, "Damn, those are scary. I'm gonna check those out." Poof! Ashiok planeswalks away. Elspeth gets control of a dream where Heliod is killing her with her own spear, and takes the spear, it manifesting into the underworld as a real weapon. She hears about these rifts and decides to peace out of death. Re-enter Klothys. Big K doesn't like all these mortals trying to cheat fate, and she dispatches a bunch of agents to deal with the mess that Erebos' neglect has caused. But for Elspeth, Klothys needs something special. She created Calyx, a creature of fate designed specifically to capture Elspeth. Elspeth rides through the underworld, getting allies and followers, fighting battles with her shadow spear, and telling everyone when she wins that she's carrying the real spear and Heliod's sporting the fate. A few of these fights were against Calyx. Every time he stepped up, she put him down, and each time he was a little more prepared. But eventually she made it to a rift, where Heliod was waiting for her. Apparently, Daxos found out about her escape and was compelled to tell Heliod. Heliod had heard that if Elspeth got out, it would be his undoing. So he went to her, stupidly, and charged her with his spear, which shattered nearly immediately. The belief in Elspeth as she won battle after battle made her lie the truth on Theros, and her spear became the real spear, and Heliod's the fake. So she beat him down, embarrassed him, and he yielded, which Erebos loved. Spiteful as he is, Erebos traps Heliod Atlas style, holding a big old rock over his head for all eternity, or until his followers forgot about him, whichever came first. Erebos thanks Elspeth and sends her on her way to the mortal world. She and Daxos have a smooch, she pieces off Theros, and Calyx gets a spark from destiny and walks after her. This story is short, but it has a lot of implications on the story as it's been told in the past. Let's start with Theros' belief to reality nature. According to the lore, if there's a strong enough belief in something on Theros, that belief can manifest that thing into being. This isn't much different than many real-world magics claim to work, as well as other religious and spiritual techniques. Mind over matter, right? But the permanence of this brings up some interesting questions. Could a single person with enough belief cause a calamity? Once when I was young, I was so feverish, I would have sworn there was a troll in my bedroom. Could my illness bring trolls into being on Theros? Ashiok's nightmares were so real that Elspeth won a weapon from them, and belief in her caused the real godsend, created to kill gods, to shatter into pieces. If Ashiok were to devote Ashiok's time to becoming a god on Theros, who knows how screwed up the Pantheon would be. Speaking of that spear, there are some troubling things about it. One is it seems to be dripping in Phyrexian oil, which would make sense given the intense horror of Elspeth's nightmares. But is it real Phyrexian oil? Will Theros get corrupted in the same way Mirrodin did because Elspeth had a bad dream? Chilling to consider, given the only people to ever beat the Phyrexians did it by blowing up a god and left the plane a smoldering crater. Not the best outcome. We also have to wonder how much strength the Shadow Spear would have on other planes. Sure, Thassa's Biden has worked pretty well off-plane, but that was the god's weapon to begin with, not an up-jumped copy. And if it does work, what will it do on other planes? If it has the power to kill a god on Theros, what worlds could Elspeth save with it? What planes could she destroy? The Titans were an interesting add to this set, seeing as they are not lore-wise free. Based on the short story and the Story Through Cards article, it looks like the Titans never got loose during the timeline of this set. Mechanically, it could have been to give an interesting card to Rakdos and Simic without making another Mogus or Krufix, and to tease a potential return to Theros in the future. No card does that more than Heliod's punishment. According to the story, Erebos trapped Heliod under that rock to rot forever, but the card suggests that you can't keep a crazed god down. Its mechanic gives Heliod a means of escape. We have an idea that there are at least 3 Titans based on the Binding of the Titans card. Perhaps we'll see it in action when Heliod escapes the underworld. We'll have to wait 4 turns to find out. Finally, Calix's entire existence is another leap into unknown territory for Magic lore. A long time back, Wizards had a bunch of rules that were involved in planeswalking, something of a bible to which all planeswalkers, even the strongest ones, were subject to. One of those things involved unnaturally born creatures being unable to get a spark, the only exception being Karn, but that's a story for another day. Probably multiple days. Nyxborn are created of Nyx itself, so the child of Klothys shouldn't likely have a spark. In recent years, and especially in 2019, WotC has cut a lot of flack for changing the rules for their planeswalkers, amongst other retractions, and this may be the shape of that. Lore-wise, we don't know if Calix gained a spark because of his destiny bind with Elspeth to bring her back to being dead, or if he willed it into being using Theros' mind over matter principles. Either way, if Calix can get a spark, what's stopping Daxos, or Thassa, or a Phyrexian? Imagine a bigger threat than Bolas, traveling from plane to plane, dropping a jar of Phyrexian oil on a bear, and scooting off. These could be great storytelling devices, but judging by the last book, I'm hesitant to call anything just yet. I haven't seen this much redaction in a story since the Disney Renaissance. And that's the gospel truth. But that's what I think. Tell me what you think in the comments below. For those of you who've been reaching out to me on Twitch and Facebook, thank you so much for your feedback. I've been listening to everything, good and bad, and I'll be implementing some changes in the future that you might like. And if you like what you see, maybe hit that subscribe button. I've been Dish, and everybody out of the